We're just choosing to be weak. And I don't know how much longer we can keep the genie in the bottle. It begins with not recognizing that what happens in the Islamic Republic of Iran, that what those Ayatollahs are doing is they aim to not only eliminate Israel, the Houthis that say death to America and death to Israel, they want to destroy the entire world.
Welcome back, folks. I hardly need to tell you that the whole world is focused on what is happening in Israel, what has been happening in Israel, what has happened in Israel. And we have right now as my guest a friend, Johnnie Moore. He's the president of the Congress of Christian Leaders. He has just been in Israel. Johnnie Moore, welcome.
Thanks, Eric. Great to see you.
So you were just there. What can you tell us? Because it's tough. It's tough to fathom what is going on there. I just saw Prime Minister Netanyahu on TV the other day talking about trying to wipe out Hamas, these wicked, sadistic terrorists, trying to balance that with, how do we avoid killing Palestinian civilians? How do we get hostages back? It just seems to be the worst kind of scenario. What is your sense of where things are?
Look, I would tell you that whatever you know about the situation on October 7th, my experience going and meeting with the victims, meeting with the survivors, the family members of hostages, the situation is much, much worse than anything that you've seen. A lot of people have seen this 47-minute video. That it's all worse. This is the single worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. It is the most dangerous situation that we've lived in, maybe in our modern life. And Israel has to win this war. They're not just fighting for us, for themselves. They're also fighting for us. I mean, this is a resurgence of Islamist terrorism that's coming directly from Tehran. And the whole point of everything is to break apart everything that we know and that we love. And it's important for Christians to stand with Israel. We know that. But this is far, far bigger than October 7th or this war against Hamas. This is literally about the future for all of us.
Where do you think things stand right now? Because, you get conflicting reports. It's hard to know how does one prosecute a war with the Israeli Defense Forces where there are hostages being held by, these sadistic members of Hamas. They are sadistic, cruel, sick people. This is not the Geneva Convention that we're dealing with here. This is not the Marquess of Queensberry rules. These are really sadistic monsters. I don't know how else, if you saw a little bit of what happened on October 7th, people have to know this. How do you deal with those kind of people? I can't even begin to imagine.
You have to win the war. And by the way, Israel is winning the war. I mean, you wouldn't know it from the press, but Israel is very, very close to finishing all of this. They've eliminated almost all of the Hamas battalions. But the problem now is the world is trying to stop Israel when Israel is on the 1 yard line of finishing the job, and the duplicity of the world is just unbelievable. I mean, Israel is as from the very beginning of this war. I mean, they've been doing things that are tactically foolish for an army. They're warning people about where they're going, what they're doing. They're doing humanitarian pauses. They're dropping flyers from the sky. They're telling people where to go to avoid the attacks. Yet Hamas keeps pushing the people out in front. And the other side of it is the United States has allies that should be doing more. Chief of which is the state of Qatar. I mean, we have our largest military presence in the whole of the Middle East in the state of Qatar. And while we're talking right now, just a few hours ago, the Iranian foreign minister arrived in Doha, was welcomed by the Qataris to meet with the head of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Doha, Qatar. Like, this is the place where our largest military presence is in the Middle East. And then right after that meeting, the foreign minister of Iran sat down and met with the foreign minister of Qatar. So it's not just what Israel is doing; it's what the United States is doing. And the most recent hostage rescues. Israel just rescued a couple of hostages. It's interesting that they rescued them in a city called Rafah. this is the city that the whole world is trying to keep Israel from advancing their war into. And these two elderly men who were hostages were being held in plain sight on the second floor of a public building. They weren't even in tunnels. You can't tell me that the people in Doha didn't know that they were there, that Hamas couldn't have given up those people if enough pressure was put on them. And so, it's not just what's happening over there, it's what's happening here. It's a good thing, for instance, that Texas A&M just ended its relationship with the folks in Qatar, because we have allowed in the last couple of years, unfortunately, through United States foreign policy, we have allowed the percolation of terrorism in the Middle East. Iran almost had lost all of its cash reserves. They've received $100 billion in the last 3.5 years, and almost all of that money is going to these proxies: Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and by the way, they have 24 other groups all around the world you've never heard of.
Johnny, it's hard for me to even hear this. When you see evil, and when I say evil, I'm thinking about Joe Biden. This administration is giving money to people, you just mentioned it, Iran. It is being funneled to sadistic human beings. This is not humanitarian aid. How is it possible? How is it possible that the tax dollars, money that we pay, you and me, and our friends and our relatives, we pay money to the U.S. government, and that the U.S. government could conceivably be using it for this kind of thing? Is it simple naivete, wrong-headedness? Because it seems to me that at some point, naivete, it's on the border of evil. In other words, even if you're not intending to do sick, evil things, by being naive, when you have the position of President of the United States, when you have these people setting foreign policy and spending billions of taxpayer dollars, you have a responsibility. It simply boggles my mind, and I have to look away because it's just too painful to consider.
Well, look, I mean, if you don't believe in good and evil, and you don't believe that some things are right and some things are wrong, then you're willing to negotiate with the other side, whatever they do. It comes down to expediency. And we definitely have people in the Department of State. We have people in the Department of Defense. By the way, we also have sort of libertarian Republicans as well, who have embraced this very this view of expediency, where you can pay off the bad guys and somehow the bad guys will stop what they're doing. And the truth is, as Christians, part of our responsibility, and by the way, as evangelicals, there's 700 million of us around the world, is that we are to be part of the moral compass in the world, and we're to say publicly, there is right and there is wrong, there is good and there is evil. There are no both sides in this conflict. And what we have seen, as you and I are talking, we are closer to a third world war than at any time in our life. And aside from the war that's percolating in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine, what's happening between Israel and Hamas and Gaza, people aren't even paying attention to the fact in the western part of Africa, we have a piecemeal caliphate that has formed amidst 250 million people, where every single day people are being killed by jihadists. We have Sudan, which had moved in the direction of peace with Israel. It was a stabilizing country. It was a country that had gotten rid of the terrorists. We now have 17 million displaced people in Sudan. We've had a half dozen coups across the center of Africa. You are living right now in the most dangerous time since World War II, and it comes down to leadership and the ability to see right and wrong and good and evil. It's not that the United States of America is less strong. In fact, we're more strong than we were a few years ago. We're economically more powerful by an order of magnitude even than we were against China, 18 months ago. The Chinese economy is collapsing. The U.S. has stabilized because for lots of reasons that no individual administration receives credit for. It's because we're the United States of America. We aren't any less powerful. We're just choosing to be weak. And I don't know how much longer we can keep the genie in the bottle, because history tells us if we don't learn the lessons of the past, we will repeat them. And we are dangerously close to repeating lessons that we don't want to repeat. And by the way, it begins with Tehran. It begins with not recognizing that what happens in the Islamic Republic of Iran, that what those ayatollahs are doing is they aim to not only eliminate Israel, the Houthis that say death to America and death to Israel, they want to destroy the entire world. They're the ones with this apocalyptic vision.
Look,
it's wrong. You don't make deals with these people.
Well, you know, I wrote a book called Letter to the American Church, and it's now out as a film, Letter to the American Church. And part of it is that this idea that those of us who love Jesus and are Christians shouldn't be political, it is not a biblical idea. Right behind you is a picture of Abraham Lincoln. Imagine in 1860 saying, you know what, I'm a Christian, so I'm neutral on slavery. I'm neutral on whether you should try to elect Lincoln to the presidency. I don't want to go there. You think how preposterous that is. And the evil that is being perpetrated in the world today is because of an administration that doesn't get it. And so that's why I say to people, I don't care what you think of Donald Trump. If you don't elect him, the blood is going to be on your hands. You can think that you've taken a nice neutral religious position, but you have a responsibility before God to choose wisely, if not for yourself, for others who are going to be impacted.